I'm so happy here to welcome all of you in our global webinar related to the role of internal auditor in fraud prevention and detection. And today we have with us a renowned keynote speaker, Mr. Amir Mousa, that he's going to share with us so many of his experience over 17 years related to how can internal auditors play an active role in preventing and detecting fraud. With that, I will give the mic to Mr. Mousa.
Thank you, Iyad. I truly appreciate the opportunity that we can speak to many people as much as we can. We can raise awareness during this month. And without any further delay, I hope everybody is staying safe. And I know it's a challenging time. I know it's a difficult time, but in the same time, it's an opportunity for you and your service to grow, to reposition, and to rebrand yourself. I can see this opportunity as once in a lifetime. We need to capture it for ourselves and for our functions and department. Without any further delay, let's go to our agenda. We have a very big agenda today. We will touch areas on the IDBF standards that's talking specifically about fraud and fraud risk management. We will also touch base on the ACFE recent report to the nation 2020, which is addressing the importance of internal audit and advisory functions in fraud detection and prevention. We will go through the main characteristics of internal audit. We will highlight the responsibilities of all people across the organization, the board of director role, the internal audit role, the management role, who is responsible for fraud risk management. And again, we will touch base on the fraud triangle and how it's been done. This is a very nice topic also about the potential red flag phrases that you might encounter during your audit, and you will immediately capture it, and you can see this is something wrong here. Along the way, we will definitely talk about the pandemic and how the fraud is increasingly going on through this pandemic. Also, we will cover areas, which is very important areas, what we can do as internal auditor to help the organization during this difficult time. But most importantly, in my opinion, by far, is that we should demonstrate that we are and you are indispensable. That's very important. The whole idea, this 1 hour, we'll be talking about that, how to make yourself indispensable. If we're talking about fraud, I always look to fraud as lightning. You know, the lightning then hits the high buildings and like that. Now you can see this beautiful picture of Burj Khalifa. It's the tallest tower in the world. You know that Burj Khalifa is built in Dubai, which we don't have so much, you know, lightning, and we hardly, the winter visit us 2 weeks a year. So, but the one who designed that, who thought about the risk of a lightning, and he put a special device to, you know, handle the lightning. I'll give you a fun fact. You should always remember that. It's saying that a person can hit or might hit by lightning in his lifetime 1 to 12,000. It's very rare situation in a lifetime of a person to be hit by a lightning or by a fraud. You can believe that until you see this video. This is our friend, John. This is the first hit by lightning. This is the ratio that he might have. But let's see what's going to happen now. He's going to make it and he's going to stand up. Good, he survived and now he's going on his way. Again, that is the second one. Let's see what's going to happen. He's going to make it and stand up. Let's see. Actually, he did. Surprisingly, he did. And third time, he was hit by the lightning. So obviously, if you rely on the statistics saying that it's 1 to 12,000 that lightning can hit somebody, or you rely on the statistics that, you know what, we have in a very good organization, fraud is very far away from us, fraud will never happen in our community, we're very, we're very honest people, all this comes under statistics. But you know what, we should be aware and we should be playing an important role in that. If we're going to the IDBF standards, as internal audit, we build all our work on the IDBF standards. There is 4 areas where fraud was mentioned in the IDBF standards, specifically in this standard, the attribute standard number 1210 about proficiency. Is clearly saying that internal auditors must have sufficient knowledge to evaluate the risk of fraud. And I want to emphasize the word must. So it's not like an optional, should I know about fraud or I don't know. It's a must to comply with the IDBF standards. If you go to the next standards, which is relating to how we do the engagement itself. The engagement itself is basically goes to our objective and risk management and reporting. In these 3 main areas, look how the IDBF is clearly mentioning the fraud. And the standard number 2210 is clearly saying internal audited must consider the probability of significant errors and fraud. This is as objective. So when we are trying to put the objective of the assignment, we need to include the risk of fraud as part of our objective, as per the standard. When we go to the next one, which is the risk management, we know and we do know that once we identify the objective, it's time now to do the risk assessment. And then a question comes here, where we do the fraud risk assessment. Is it included in all our engagement? Is it part of our thoughts? Again, the standard is clearly saying that internal audit activity must evaluate the potential for the occurrence of fraud and how the organization manage fraud risk. It's mandatory as internal auditors by the standards that we should put it in our objective, included in the risk management, and eventually it will come to the reporting side. Reporting must include, again, significant risk, including fraud risk. If your reporting is lacking the fraud risk, there is a big gap in your reporting. When we finish the standard and we know that internal audit,
it's really great to see exactly what you are speaking about when we are speaking about the IDBF standards, because we can see that IIA, they were actually specifically speaking about the fraud risk, compared in the old days, they were speaking about risk in general. So now we can recognize more and more, not only IIA, but also, the external reporting standards, all the, compliance programs, they are trying to differentiate between the operational risk, the organization, the business risk, and between fraud risk, and saying fraud risk by itself should be considered and addressed by the auditors and management.
Yes, Yes, totally agree, totally agree. And actually in the recent studies, Iyad, they are saying that the fraud risk assessment should be in a separate document, should not be included in the overall risk assessment. As important as it should be separated in a different document. Actually, the role that the internal audit is playing is being recognized by the ACFE itself. If you go through the 2020 ACFE report to the nation, you will clearly find that internal audit activity was like the second most common method of detecting fraud. And you know, if you go like 3 weeks back, we had with Iyad a good webinar with the president of the ACFE, and he was clearly, you know, pointing to the 2020 ACFE report and highlighting the internal audit role in detection and preventing the fraud. But in order for us to play such a role, we should have a clear role definition. What is our role? What is other people's role? If you go to the next slide, let me ask you a question. Who is responsible for fraud risk management? Everybody. Who is responsible for fraud detection and prevention? The simple answer is all the stakeholders that you can see on the screen right now. The board of directors are responsible to oversight of the management actions. Yes. And the management are responsible to find the implementation and the tools to make and the control procedures to prevent and detect fraud. If today we are talking about internal audit specifically, let's go what's the internal audit role specifically. If you go to the next idea, there is 4 main ideas that every internal auditor or advisory should put in mind and learn and grow in it. Number 1, identify red flags. When we say about red flags, let's give some examples about that. One of the famous red flags that you should be aware of is living beyond one's means. For example, let's go for that. If the procurement manager, for example, he's driving a sedan car and suddenly he's driving a Bentley or a Ferrari, what is the options or what's happened in his life that he can afford that? For me, there is 2 options only. Option number 1, that he inherited his uncle who's living in Brazil and he's giving me a lot of fortune. Option number 2, something wrong went on. So we should be careful about that. Once we identify the red flags, including the living beyond his means, including financial difficulties, we are living and having a daily operation with all of the people there. We should be aware, like if this guy would have an extra liabilities, he's always talking about the loans that he's taking, he was not able to repay all his liabilities. This is the second one. The third one, and it's very important, that he has a close relationship with the supplier, with the vendor. Like, you know what? I'll give you one example. It happens many times that you can see, like, you know what? I know this supplier. I can give you the best price out of this supplier. How is this happening? Is that because he's like his relative or maybe his own company and running outside? We never know. Again, we should evaluate that. And eventually, we should evaluate the overall effectiveness of control and the control environment in the organization. So it is, again, let me repeat it again. It's 4 things. It's the red flags. It's the characteristics of the fraud. It's the evaluation of the relationship between the staff and the outsider and the effectiveness of the whole control. This is 4 characteristics of internal audit that he should always focus during his course of assignments. When we go to the next idea, in order to internal audit to identify and clearly understand the fraud, this is the fundamental idea about the fraud triangle. Why the fraud happens? Big questions. Why the fraud happens? The fraud happens specifically based on these three items. Number one is the opportunity, then the rationalization, and the pressure. I'll give you the definition of the IIA. The IIA has defined the fraud as any illegal acts characterized by deceit. Again, here we're talking about the intent to deceit, intent to concealment, or violation of trust. If we try to understand the fraud triangle, the opportunity, the rationalization, the pressure, things will be much easier for our internal audit function or advisory function to perform better. Let's watch this small video that capture the ideas about the fraud triangle. Yes, so it's opportunity, it's rationalization, and it's pressure. I do believe the most important part out of the fraud triangle for an organization would be the opportunity. The opportunity, on a simple term, would be the control environment, the tone at the top, how the organization is handling the gaps, the risk, the fraud risk gaps, and try to find controls into that. I'll give you some examples of the opportunity that we should focus on. One of the most important things is the segregation of duties. It is extremely unaccepted if the finance guy doing the HR and the payroll. It is extremely unaccepted if the procurement and receiving and paying would be under one category or one supervisor or one manager. It cannot be. Segregation of duty is one of the key elements in the control environment. Again, we need to address the relationship between the employees and the management. And if there is particular relationship between them, I saw so many examples of the boss that he is hiring his wife in the procurement department. That's not acceptable. I saw many people are trying to hire their relatives and it's going okay. The control environment should not allow such a thing. And many policies and many multinational organizations would prevent such a thing. Again, we're not saying because of this is there, that means there is a fraud, but it's a big opportunity for people. Again, one of the key things is that we always do that. your password, your username and password. Who have it? Is it everybody in your department? Is it like procurement, sales, having the same username and password? Did you write your username and password in front of your laptop so everyone is an open community? It doesn't go like that. This is an opportunity, and you never know who's gonna catch this opportunity. Again, one of the key things is the vendor master file. Who can access the vendor master file? And who can approve it? Who can edit it? This is few examples of opportunity. Opportunities are a lot, and we should be focusing on closing the gaps along with these control areas. Again, the pressure. When we talk about pressure, it's always like financial pressure. The bonus this year is not gonna come. Or maybe if we're gonna achieve this financial statements with that big net income, we might have a big bonus. Or a lot of things that people would say that, you know what, we are under pressure, under financial difficulties. Let's take the opportunity, the one that we just talked about. And one of the things that's always there, and it's always there, once you have the opportunity, whether you have a pressure or not, there is always something rationalization. It's in the mindset of the fraudster and scammers. He thinks that he deserves that. He doesn't think that, you know what, I'm stealing from my company. He just think, you know what, this is my right. I know this. You know what, the big boss is taking all his money for his pocket. We're always hearing about this. We're always hearing that he's favoring that employee over me. I'm a hard worker, but I'm not getting my money. I'm not getting what I deserve. Again, in the mindset of the fraudster, he always finds a rationale beyond what he's doing. If we understand the fraud triangle, and specifically the opportunities that may arise because of the fraud gaps, fraud risk management gaps, you will be able to tackle and detect and prevent a lot of fraud. And in order to give you a practical example, during your audit and course of audit, you will hear these phrases. And I want you to correlate right now. When you hear that, someone is saying, and this is very famous, it's between you and me. It's off the record. It's off the record. Why you're telling the internal audit something off the record? Something is hidden, something that he does not want to disclose. Again, one of the common areas is like, you know, this is as work is around. Or you know what, there was no policy or procedure for this process. I was surprised when someone tell me that. Do you need a policy to tell you that you don't need to take more than it's been on the authority matrix or approve more than authority matrix? Do you need a policy to tell you that when you have cash disbursement, it should be supported by invoices? Yes, I love policy, I love procedure, I'm an internal auditor, I love those things, but we should thought about it. This is not a granted thingy. This is really how it works done here. I don't think so. This is the way it's supposed to work. I don't believe you. We should be skeptical by the word and how it means. Skeptical and have the critical thinking. Is it really because they don't have the right process, or there is something beyond that? Again, more phrases that you should think about it. Once you heard it, as work is around, this is just one time. He's a nice guy, you know what? He's a nice performing person. Just one time only that he took some cash out of the case. Come on, it's just one time. You're gonna return it next day. It doesn't go like that. It doesn't go like that. It's once in a while, or I have always done that. and my supervisor never say anything to me. It's not because you or your supervisor are doing the right thing. Absolutely no. We should be aware of these things. I would think, please write in the comments, how many of you heard this word, off the record? I do believe everyone in this career, in the advisory, would hear about off the record, or between you and me. It's brother to brother. Okay, now we learn about the standards. We learn about the internal audit role. We learn about the responsibility of the internal audit. We know few phrases and that should capture our ears and our attention when we hear it. We learn about the fraud triangle and the importance of having or closing the gaps of the opportunity. Now let's talk about something that we all having these days. I will be surprised, extremely surprised, if you did not receive a message, an email about someone selling masks, selling hand sanitizer, or selling the investment in UK or somewhere else, or sending an email that looks like your boss is sending an email. He has his same name and the same company name. How he can do that? You know what? It's called scams. It's the recent studies of the ACFE saying that more than 90% of fraud investigators can notice increase in fraudulent activity in this time. I always look at it's a pandemic, it's more fraud. It goes hand by hand. More disaster, it is the right time for scammers to do that. But let's learn a few tricks how we detect scams. I'll give you 3 tricks. You know, number one, what he would say? He would say, it's urgent. It's urgent. You need to send this email and this transaction, it's urgent. You have to pay me this amount, as act fast. You will lose the opportunity. My friends, nothing is urgent. You can always double check. And this is my second advice. It is not urgent. You need to double check. If you receive a call from your mobile network saying you are the lucky number 1015 and you're gonna win the next iPhone. Why? Why? Did it happen before that you've been a lucky person? Maybe, but you need to double check. So number one, if something urgent, if someone's sending a message or an email or a phone call saying it's urgent, nothing urgent. Number two, double check. You can call the bank. How many messages you received from a bank asking for your password? It never happened. It never happened, and it will never happen. Again, you have to be aware. Check your email, the full details of your email. Check your SMS. And I'll give you one great example or a statement that define what is a scam or what is not a scam. If it is too good to be true, it's not true. You need to double check it. If it's too good to be true, you need to double check it. This is a few examples of what's been running now. Again, somebody received a message from the UK government saying, you know what, you did not follow the instructions of the government. You will be fined by £250. You need to send this right now. Or you receive an email that looks like from the WHO is warning you about something or give you a safety procedure, and you need to click on this link right now. Really? Do you think the WHO will just send you specifically about a safety procedure and you need to click something that you need to enter your credit card? It doesn't go like that. It doesn't go like that. We need to be alert of what's going on right now. There is a study are saying that during 2020, the scammers are expected to get $2 billion out of the pandemic and coronavirus. And that's very important. That's very important. And such awareness are very good. We will show you one video right now. And I do ask you, do not do the same as he did. This is dangerous. But again, it's very funny. And the scammers deserve that. Let's watch the video.
I'm James Veach. I get a ton of scam emails, but instead of deleting them, I decided to hit reply. Today, I had a weird conversation with a guy called Solomon Adonka about some gold. Here's what happened. Hello, James Veach. I have an interesting business proposal I want to share with you, Solomon. I was like, Solomon, your email intrigues me. Go on, go on. He said, Dear James Veach, we shall be shipping gold to you. You will earn 10% of any gold you distribute. So I knew I was in safe hands. I said, how much is it worth? He said, we will start with a smaller quantity. I was like, oh. And then he said, of 25 kilograms, the worth should be about $2.5 million. I said, look, Solomon, if we're going to do it, let's go big. I can handle it. How much gold do you have? He said, it's not a matter of how much gold I have. What matters is you're capable of handling. We could start with 50 kilograms as a trial shipment. I said, 50 kilograms? There's no point doing this at all. This should be at least a metric ton. He said, what do you do for a living? I said, I'm a hedge fund executive bank manager. This isn't the first time I ship bullion, my friend. No. I was like, now look, where are you based? I don't know about you, but I think we're going via the postal service. It ought to be signed for. That's a lot of gold. You know? He said, it will not be easy to convince my company to do a large quantity shipment. I said, Solomon, I am completely with you on this one. I am putting together a visual for you to take into the board meeting. Hold time. I said, Solomon, attach this email. You'll find a helpful chart. I've had one of my assistants run the numbers. I'm no statistician, but I think there's definitely something. There's definitely something going on. I've discovered an undeniable correlation. We need to be shipping as much gold as possible. He said, I will be so much happy if the deal goes well, because I'm going to get a very good commission as well. And I said, that's amazing. What are you going to spend your cut on? And he said, on real estate. What about you? I said, one word, hummus. It's going places. I was at the grocery store the other day and there are like 30 different varieties. Also, you can cut up carrots. I'm not going to get them. Have you ever done that? Solomon! He said, I have to go to bed now. Tomorrow, have sweet drink. I said, bonsoir, my golden nugget. Bonsoir. I said, Solomon, I'm concerned about security. When we email each other, we need to use a code. You agree? And so I said, that's amazing. I said, Solomon, I spent all night coming up with this code. We need to use it in all further correspondence. Lawyer, gummy bear, bank, cream egg, legal, fizzy cola bottles, plain peanut M&Ms, documents, jelly beans, Western Union, a giant gummy lizard. Please call me Kit Kat in all further correspondence. I didn't receive anyone back from him, so I was like, gone too far. I said, you know, Solomon, is the deal still on? Kit Kat. He did reply, and he said, the business is on, and I'm trying to raise the balance for blah, blah, blah. I said, dude, you have to use the code. What followed is the greatest email I've ever received. The business is on, and I'm trying to raise the balance for the gummy bear so he can submit all the needed fizzy cola bottle jelly beans to the cream egg for the peanut M&Ms process to start. Send £1,500 via a giant gummy lizard. Just subscribe. I mean, just subscribe.
All right, the great video, and thank you so much for sharing all these ideas. And just currently to give an update to all our attendees, Google actually noticed that the amount of scams that are happening globally related to Corona exceeded any kind of scams happen related to anything else compared to government scams or, you know, email scams or internet scams. And for that, Google created a special website over the internet called www.scamspotter.org, where they are mentioning all the different kind of scams related to fake vaccines that they are sending to individuals to buy, or fake examination saying you are positive, you need to go check yourself because we have noticed people around you, they were positive, or all these kinds of like, actually the government give you a check and the check waiting for you, please click on this to collect it. So Google had to step up the game and introduce all, you know, these scams on a special website because the amount of fraud in Corona went to the roof. So with that, I would like to thank you for mentioning these issues, because currently this is the trend related to fraud.
Yes. Yes. One more thing, if you guys noticed, just a question. Did you notice at what he's gonna buy with all this money? He's gonna buy hummus, which is really funny for us. So don't do like this guy. This is a professional person who scam the scammers, or just, you know, get rid of them. But do not try to do that. It have a lot of, you know, unknown risk. Again, when we go to this important role as internal audit or an advisory during the pandemic, it should be different. We should agree that our role should be different. We should not do as we used to do before. I have some questions that people are sending about this internal audit role. Someone is saying that, how can I achieve my annual audit plan? And people are not helping, because we have a lot of requests to be done. We have documents that to be collected. And other than these things, my friend, my advice to you, you remember the annual internal audit plan that you prepared in December last year? Do you remember the risk assessment that you did in December or November last year? You should do this right now. You should go and get rid of all of that. It is irrelevant, my friends. It is irrelevant. The risk assessment or the internal audit plan that's been done on December or maybe January, it is irrelevant now. So the question of, are we able to complete the number of audits based on the audit plan? That's not even a relevant question. What we should do during the pandemic should be different, should be an opportunity for the internal audit and advisory functions to reposition and rebrand yourself. I'll give you a few ideas how we can do that. I hope that these ideas will trigger an opportunity for you and your function to grow and prove that you are invincible. Number one, participate in the crisis management committees. But somebody will come and say, but Amir, you know, this is like against the independence. We should be independent, we should be objective, and we should be. Yes, I understand that. Yes, I do respect that. But you know what? This is not a normal time. If you are not with the management and can do an active, a real add value to the management, you don't have a position in the era after the pandemic. So my advice, go and participate in the crisis management. Number two, identify new and changed risk. Destroy your risk assessment that's been done in December. Tear it up. Now you need to establish a realistic one. That one deals with the current challenges, the current difficulties. Somebody's gonna ask me how we can do that. How we can do that? You know what? If you don't know how to do that, simply ask the management. Yes, simply ask the management. What can I help? How can I contribute? Do you have difficulties in cash management and liquidity? Do you need some analysis on the next financial statement? Do you need to know the difficulties of the supply chain across our subsidiaries? Do you want to know how we can handle the risk management after we're coming back to work again? Present yourself as an advisor and adding value. Number three, eliminate duplications. I know that does not sound like internal audit or advisory. We always, and we love, it should be signed from X and Y and Z. It should be signed from everyone. The petty cash should be on a serial number and signed from everyone. I would really appreciate if the internal audit would, in his observation, would say, you know what, there is extra controls in this area. There is nothing wrong about it. There is no shame about saying there is extra control. Actually, the management will look at you as an adding value, that you want the business to grow. Fourth, be agile. Finding ways that you can work remotely. Some people send me a question and he's saying that, you know, this is the lockdown and the control and movement control are being restricted. How we can help? Get an access to the system. Generate your own data. Build an effort into the analyzing of the data. And why not learn new techniques of analyzing data? That will come to the next idea. Data analysis. You know what? This is the next one. If you don't know how to extract the data from the system and put it in an infographic, a nice pictures with a nice, meaningful ideas, you are outdated. Again, this is a different time, requires a different and new skills. Again, the next two ideas are very, you know, to the basic concept that I want to deliver during this session. Work with the first and second line of defense. We've always been having our, you know, what a third line of defense. We will not step into the first or the second line of defense. We might breach our independence. It is the right time now to go and present yourself to the first and second line of defense. And with the skill set that you have, you will able to help and you will able to add value. Remember, as internal audit or advisory, you've been visited a lot of things. You've been visited the operations. You've been visited the manufacturing facility. You visited a lot of areas. Maybe the CFO himself did not do that. It is the right time for you to add value at the first and second line of defense. I would say that these 7 ideas that's been presented here, starting from participating in crisis management and going through to be a part, an effective part of the first and second line of defense. And you can always find the balance between having the right independent, to be an independent person, at the same point of time, and adding value to the organization. Why we learn all of that? There is one word that we should always thought about it and think about it. We should demonstrate that you are invincible. Invincible. That means that you are not replaced by some other function. You are not neglected or not included in the ongoing operation. Let me ask you a straight question here. Are you included in all their emails that sent to the organization? Are you included in the WhatsApp groups that the management build to tackle quick actions? Are you part of their quick response team? These are all questions that we should all work on, and it's not too late. Absolutely, it's not too late. You have the skill set to do that. You have the skill set to that. We should be showing that we are the champions in crisis management. How we can do that? Stay technically up to date. Stay relevant. And always maintain, and this is my last advice to all and everybody, and to myself also, to maintain the eager to learn. There is always something new to learn. One of the questions he was talking about how we can learn fraud investigation, how we can learn forensic accounting. You know what? It's all available now using the technology that we have right now. And thanks to the pandemic, everything either free or with a small fees, you can gain a lot of knowledge and you can demonstrate that you are invincible. If I finish my presentation today, there is always one word I want you to remember. You should always demonstrate that you are invincible. And hopefully all of us will grow, will learn, we reposition ourselves, and we rebrand ourselves as a key business partner who can add value to the organization.
All right, thank you very much for all this great advice and ideas related to how can we actually demonstrate the value of internal auditors and play active role during and after the pandemic. You can write all your questions in the chat box and I will address them soon. We are going to have around 9 minutes for question and answer. But before I continue with that, it's very important to remember during the pandemic that we need to audit the auditors. Currently, we are working remotely. So because we are working remotely, there is a huge chance for auditors who are going to be influenced by management to not perform their job. So in that way, they will say, you are staying home. We are the management. I am the CEO. Most likely, the internal audit department will not continue. HR, they are thinking about actually firing 50% of the staff. Do you want to be part of this 50%? So management can influence, and we can see recent cases happening globally that management now, they can put more pressure on the internal auditors. I'm not speaking about the audit department. I'm speaking about individual auditors and tell them, remove some of the issues that you are looking at related to fraud. And in that way, we will ensure that you stay in the organization, or otherwise maybe you will be fired. So we need to make sure that auditors are actually audited by their supervisors. Those supervisors, they are actually checking their work. They are reviewing their files. They are making sure they are doing the proper job. We need to ensure that the head of internal audit department is actually also controlled by actually the audit committee. We need to make sure also the audit committee is actually controlled by the board. We need to have the proper structure and the proper procedures in place to ensure that always the auditor is being audited. We know auditors, they do based on ACFE report to the nation, the minimum amount of fraud is the least cases happen by the auditor, but still it's significant, especially now when they are feeling their job is on the line. All right, so we have some questions here I would like you, Amir, to address. The first question, they are saying, because today we are working remotely, we are working from home. So in that way, the employees, they are going to do less fraud because they are not digitally savvy for them to do fraud. What do you think about that?
Actually, it's exact opposite for that. It's the exact, because we are working remotely and everyone is sitting in his home, there is more opportunity that fraud could occur. And this is evidenced by the statistics and what we can see right now. You are not monitoring them. The direct supervisor are not looking at them. Maybe the checkbook is not in the organization in the safe anymore. It's with somebody. There is more characteristics to the fraud to be happening during the remote connections rather than the physical connections.
Thank you very much. There is another question. They say the internal audit can't be functioning well without support from the audit committee. So how can the audit committee support internal audit function during and after the pandemic for them to be able to conduct different kind of audit activities?
That's a very good question. Actually, the internal audit, I would say it needs to be empowered by the audit committee or the board. And this is a very important, should be written in a way or another under the main definitions of the internal audit. We should be empowered by the audit committee. I would agree and would support if there is a memo that comes from the top management during this pandemic or difficult times that empower or extra empower the internal auditor to do their job. I would see as a very effective at sound control if the CEO or the group CEO or the audit committee himself would send an email saying during this time, internal audit will be able to access 1, 2, 3, and 4, including the system and the records that's not even done before. It's an unprecedented time, require unprecedented actions.
All right, we have another question. and they are saying, can you give us an example about what are the current risks that happening during the pandemic that we need to be aware of as internal auditors?
Actually, one of the key areas that we should focus now, I would always look at 3 areas. Number 1 is the cash management, which is a key area because now the collection of revenues and receivable is a question mark, is a big question mark. The second is the supply chain disruption. We all now, as lockdown, the supply chain, it might be affected. Your manufacture might be affected. If we focus on the cash flow management, along with the supply chain disruption, and of course the fraud risk management, these are, in my point of view, there are the 3 main risk areas that all organizations should be focusing about.
Thank you very much. Another question saying, what about the new technical skill set that auditors, they need to have, after the pandemic? Because currently how they are going to actually audit remote location. Can you see any new standards coming from IA related to addressing the new skills that auditors, they need and the new procedure of conducting audits?
The new skills, I'm encouraging everybody to gain new skills in the platform of the audit functions. For example, if you are an expert in risk management, you should gain more knowledge in fraud investigation. If you are expert in fraud investigation, gain more knowledge about compliance and data protection or what's going on. If you are expert in all of that, you need to learn more about infographic data and analysis and deep analysis. There is a lot of skills that is really needed right now that should be addressed by internal auditors. And once you widen your knowledge, you will be able to help yourself and help the organization.
Thank you very much. We have a final question. We have so many questions, but this is question important. The question said that you mentioned the role of internal auditor related to fraud prevention and you define them inside the organization. But what is the role of the risk management to identify and evaluate fraud risk?
Risk management has a significant role in identifying and detecting risk. Risk management is part of the management. Let's always remember that. It's part of the management. The risk management would always define, or I do recommend to define a separate document or separate list of fraud risk management, how they identify it, how they tackle it, how they prevent it, and how they eliminate it. And again, as internal audit, our role is to review the risk management function, how efficiently and effectively they are doing their job.
All right, thank you very much for all your comments and ideas, and thank you all for attending the sessions and for your questions. And with this, I would like to really thank you all for celebrating this month as the Internal Audit Awareness Month. And hopefully we will have you next year with us. I'm just gonna end the recording now.